We're going to export all ECA test scores. From the main page, we will go over to Guidance, Standardized Tests, that expanded here under Guidance, and then select All. What this is going to bring up are all of the test scores that have ever been entered for your school. So you may notice some names on here and think, well, they graduated 2, 3, 4 years ago. That's fine. These are just all scores, and I'll show you how to limit this search later in the video. So to extract these scores, we're going to click anywhere in here to get that hard black outline and hit Control A to select all of the documents. Go over to Actions, Utilities, and Export Data. Okay, you'll get your pop-up box, and first thing to remember to do is select the correct file path to save. Let's call this Franklin Test Export, and I usually save things to my desktop up here. Save. The next thing that we'll do is we're going to load all forms because we need to pull test data. We will need to pull from the test form. Once the forms have loaded, you can select this drop down and scroll down to Test. And you click in here to activate all of these fields. So the fields that we need, and we'll send these over in a certain order. It just makes it easier to work with in Excel. But we always pick the ID because it's the common identifier for all students. And we'll pick last name, send those two over. And then first name, and then the ECA information. So the date, score, whether or not they passed or failed, as well as the subject. So those are the fields that you need in order to determine of your active students who has passed or failed. There are additional fields in here if you would like to experiment. Sometimes it's helpful to pull a Lexile score with it, but for today's video, we'll pull just these fields. So there we have all the fields. One quick note then is if you are going to be running this report frequently, or at least every term, once you have these the way you want it, you can hit Save and call it whatever you would like, ECA report, for example, and hit OK. The next time you go and run the report, you can simply hit Open and scroll down and find your report, ECA report or export here. And once you hit OK, it will populate everything for you, so you don't need to worry about loading all the forms, so on and so forth. One other quick note about using that feature, the Save and Open feature, is that whoever runs the last report and saves it, let's say to their desktop, that file path is what's going to save. So for Franklin Road, the first time you run this report and hit Open, what it's going to show that it's saving to my desktop. You will actually need to change that, obviously, in order for you to access it. Okay. So back to the export then. Once we have everything we need, we're going to hit Run and then wait. And it's a bit of a crapshoot, and sometimes this doesn't take very long. Other times it could take several minutes. Okay, once the report's done, you will get this pop-up box that says it is done, and you can hit OK and then cancel out of this. Our next step then is going to be to open up the spreadsheet that we just exported. Okay, so here's the sheet that we just exported, and at this point we're just going to get rid of stuff that we don't need and do some copying and pasting to figure out who has and has not passed the ECA. Please keep in mind I'm no Excel expert by any stretch, so if there are quicker ways that you know or can figure out how to do this within Excel, please by all means feel free to do that. So we'll start with, I just want to filter out subjects. So I'll select my subject here and put in a filter. And we'll start with Algebra 1. Keep in mind, These are hand-entered information, so if it's entered in differently, make sure you select all things that say Algebra 1. So you can see here, Algebra 1 is entered on a transcript, I guess, 5 different ways. So hit OK. Make sure there's nothing else there. Hit OK. And then what we're looking for here are just our passers. So I'm also going to filter out and select just people who have passed. So there's our list. And then I'm going to copy this and put it on a new tab. And I'll rename this tab by clicking on it, right-clicking on it, rename Algebra. So now I'm going to do the same thing for English. Take the filters off and put one back on here. So again, find anything that's English that looks like it might be. It's an E. May need to check that one out later. English 10, and then select all of our passers and hit OK. And again, selecting everybody and pasting in a sheet. Okay, so we'll rename the English sheet as well by right-clicking and selecting rename. And we're almost ready then to just want to point something out. So as you scroll through here, you'll see there's a lot of information on this sheet because it does collect. So there's 477 tests on here that show up. So we're not expecting that staff would go through all of that information. That would take way too long. So this next step is something that we can use, a formula we can use in Excel to help us figure out quickly who has and has not passed the ECA. So in order to do that, we will need to get our active students, and we'll go to from the main student view, go over to students by grade. We're just going to export a real quick document by selecting all, going to Actions, Utilities, Export Data. Again, now this time we will use the student form, so we can use the drop down and then activate the fields. As always, too, need to change the file path. So these are Franklin active students. Save. And the only pieces we need here are the ID, and then the last name and first name. Once we have those, then we can go ahead and hit run. That shouldn't take too long, so you're not pulling a lot of information. There it is. So then we're going to open up that sheet that we just exported. Okay, so I have the sheet open here, and I'm going to get rid of these first couple of lines because it's not needed. And I'm going to move these over a little bit to give room for our formulas to enter in. Okay, so here you can see these are the active students right here, and we have their ID, last name, and first name. So our next step is I want to get all of the algebra information in our other spreadsheet pasted in here. So we'll start with algebra. It's already highlighted here, so I can hit Control-C to copy it. Go back to my student sheet and paste it here. Okay. I'm going to put algebra, hit enter, and this is the formula. I'm about to run out of time on my Screencastify, so we're going to pause here, and there will be a part 2 to this. We'll do the formula. I promise we're almost done.